I'm gonna start out with a little intro on that.
Okay, so here we are. This is John Harrington. I'm with Carbon Free Radio. It's our first broadcast, and we are at the Sustainable Living Fair in Fort Collins, Colorado. It's the 15th annual Sustainable Living Fair. It's a great bunch of people that get together and talk about all kinds of things that are environmental and holistic and good for people and the earth. And we are broadcasting with our first setup, which is well, I don't know, it's hard to explain. It's a solar buggy, and this thing is a deathmobile for bicycling, but definitely it is set up with solar panels and a battery and an inverter, and we are broadcasting carbon free. And for our first interview, I have Curtis Scheib, Eco Man, from Eco Depot USA and Blue Energy, and he is going to be doing an interview with John Anderson. And let's just get that started.
Morning, John. So my name's Curtis Scheib. I've been involved with the Sustainable Living Fair. We're recording, please. So we're at the 15th annual Sustainable Living Fair, and we're going to be interviewing John Anderson. John has been involved with this from the very first year. I got involved in the second year, and John is an expert in worm composting and soil building and other types of agricultural enhancing ways to naturally reduce our carbon that is utilized in traditional farming practices. So we're going to talk a little bit, and I'm going to ask him some questions, and he's going to get you up to speed. So welcome, John.
Thank you.
So you've been involved in worm composting. You're considered one of the top experts in Colorado, if not the nation. And I know that you're a fairly good expert in permaculture and how these all connect together to create a natural system without utilizing herbicides, pesticides, and nitrogen-fixing traditional synthetic-based stuff that's all coming from fossil fuels. So tell me how you got kind of started in moving down this direction in this path.
Well, it started as a master gardener, and I saw what I was learning was from the ag colleges wasn't the path I needed to go down. And restorative or regenerative practices, they're teaching pretty destructive practices. I may not be a nation's expert, but in practice on mid and small scales, I would consider myself sometimes head and shoulders above the rest in upscaling, repurposing anything headed toward the landfill that grew out of the ground at one time. There's a lot of folks out there that tell us that we can't feed our worms onions and citrus and all that. That's not necessarily true at all. It's just parameters. If it grew out of the ground at one time, they and the rest of the microorganisms, the unseen forces of the universe, will turn back into soil or other forms of life that feed plants.
So basically, how can this type of applications, we know the benefits for not using the synthetic pesticides and herbicides and all the downsides of those. How can what you do actually help take carbon out of the air or put it in a good use? We're trying to look at how your philosophies and practices and the things you learn have been able to come to a conclusion of how this type of I don't know if I want to call it biodynamic, but I think that's a part of it, but permaculture and all these things. We're connecting this circle of all these different things. So how does what you do kind of relate to maybe helping capture carbon out of the air and put it where we can put it to good use?
You know, that first piece of it is you can't, there's no such thing as a way. and all organic matter that goes to landfills turns into methane rather than carbon that gets put in the soil, that pollutes the methane. They claim they capture, they can capture carbon out of some of these landfills, but generally it's not more than 20% or so, as quoted from Woods End Laboratory. The carbon that is produced from these systems, the life systems are growing, should be put back in the soil in a manner that creates more of it in nature's cycle. It's biomimicry. So we're putting the worm castings and or creating spaces, better spaces for worms to live, enhances the growth of plant material in the ground. Therefore, the solar panels that plants are feed the sugars, that feed the plants, that feed the roots, that feed the microorganisms, that feed the plants. It's a never-ending cycle. Mimic nature, and it will put that carbon in the soil.
Right.
When we till the soil, that's the worst thing we can do to the soil. Just because farmers do it does not make it right. Been doing it for tilling soil and destroying the carbon structures that were evolved long ago. And just because we do it for whatever reason, to grow more food, to grow more people, doesn't make it right. When nature does it in a vertical system, we do farming in a horizontal system. It's just really the most inefficient way to grow there is. And today, now we're doing all these water systems, hydroponic systems, and they're moving vertically and being far more efficient. And we can do this out in nature without all the carbon footprint of building all these hydroponic systems.
Right.
And just by not tilling the soil in a traditional manner, we can increase the growth of plants and the growth of soil. You can actually grow soil, make you till right.
You can fix it naturally instead of fixing it synthetic.
Right. Let the microorganisms do it. Create the conditions, just like I do with my worms. Create the conditions that are conducive to letting them do their job to the highest level that they can, instead of tilling the soil, killing their space, killing their bacteria, fungi. Worms are fungi eaters. Well, when you expose that all to the sun through plows, the carbon, it all dies and gases off and it oxidizes into the air. It's pure insanity in my mind to till soils. I haven't tilled soils in probably 17, 18 years. I was taught this way, and there's so many people that are taught that way. I was able to say, I can change, because
we all can.
I'm a friend of nature's, not an enemy. And when I found that out, you almost feel betrayed, by the people who are supposed to know better, and study better. The research shows, nature shows, that all this carbon can be put back in the soil if we change our practices. We're the problem.
Right.
Our practices are.
I think we're the problem, and we got to be the solution too.
Right. There's some research out there, and Mark Shepard quoted it at Permaculture Voices this last year, that there's 34 or so percent of the Earth's surface is under agriculture. And if we were to use these practices, we could raise the organic matter in those soils just 1.5% or so the world over. Would in 3 years suck all the carbon back to 280 parts per million.
Wow.
In just 3 years.
That's amazing.
Well, again, we're putting a lot of carbon in the atmosphere using our tractors to till that soil and let it out, and the carbon-intensive, oil-intensive tractors that are doing it. If we're going to use those tractors, use them in a restorative manner rather than a destructive manner.
And also, I mean, I don't know the stats on this, but I know that there's very intensive carbon fossil fuel use in just the manufacturing of all the synthetic nitrogen fixers, herbicides, and pesticides. And I don't know the real numbers, but just to manufacture that stuff, I believe it's a pretty huge amount of energy that goes into that, and
Transported.
carbon and pollution that comes out even before you get to the tractor and the field.
Absolutely.
So really what we're advocating here is a no-till approach using natural systems to rebuild our soils so we can actually get better yields. And we know we're looking at a major turning point here when we're trying to feed so many people and our population is set to double and increase at such a rate that most experts say the tillable, cultivatable soils we have now that are steadily getting depleted are it's not going to be enough to feed people without vertical farming and changing how we do business. So
change what we eat, where we get our fats and oils and the things that we need to survive.
Right. So, kind of in conclusion of that, what do you think are some good resources for people to learn more about these practices? I know there's Permaculture Institute. Is it Permaculture Voice?
Permaculture Voices is a gathering of some of the leading
to look at these big issues.
Mark Shepard is one of the leading voices in the U.S. as far as restorative agriculture goes. Silviculture out of Missouri and Minnesota, University of Minnesota, agroforestry, those kinds of things. We can fill our forests with multiple layers of food,
right?
Which we don't do.
Yeah, I've heard of forest gardening, food forester. I'm not sure what the right
food
term
forest. They move it around, change it around because there's pushback, and so we kind of keep changing the name so we don't get that maybe bad name. Permaculture's got a bad name, but yet again, some of my teachers are teaching it in universities around the country now. It's finally being accepted.
Right.
Again, much of what we learn in universities, if we want to change them, comes from the ground up. Get them students in to ask, I want to learn this, I want to learn this. But right now, the thing that I'm jazzed up about is Mark Shepard's Restoration Agriculture book that was published last year, and then a video that does really well at teaching and convincing the powers that be that this stuff works. And there's a videotape on YouTube. It's called Keyline 1955, and this stuff was known 60 years ago, how to do it. And we still are contour plowing.
Yeah. Key lime, that's my favorite pie.
Yeah.
Well, John, thanks a lot for your time today, and we appreciate all the work you're doing and all the people you've impacted at the fair and beyond. And we encourage you to keep plugging along and helping make us through this transition to a cleaner, greener, carbon-free world. Thanks again.
Accept the transformation.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks.
You're welcome.
What do you think, boss? Don't tell me you didn't get it.
Let's go.